Hello, this is going to be an untraditional video that I don't usually do, and it's actually kind of a spur of the moment type thing. I have been considering it in the back of my mind for a little while, and I'll tell you why that is. It might be obvious from the video title that I choose, but there was an event that happened today that made it like, okay, you know what, let's just do this. So this is basically the format of Am I the Asshole on simple Haskell. And I was a couple weeks ago banned from r/learnprogramming. And honestly, it was a bit of a crisis for me. I was honestly really sad, even more sad than I kind of let on to myself at first. I got really in my head about it, and I asked myself like a lot, like did I deserve that? I was really frustrated. Like it was honestly something that really mattered to me, and well, yeah. So here I am to ask you, am I the asshole? And so after about a week of just sort of thinking and mulling it over with myself. I decided to go ahead and write a letter, write a complaint trying to appeal the decision to actually literally read it. I still haven't gotten any response back, and I don't really know if I actually expect one, unfortunately. So I figured today let's just read through the letter that I wrote. Oh, and the reason why I'm doing this at this moment, like at this literal moment in time, is because my co-founder just got banned for life. For life, right? Not like a temporary ban. Her first post ever in r/learnprogramming, she was banned for life. Which, this question of am I the asshole? Is she the asshole? I don't know. I don't personally think so. And what she was posting about was a new framework that our team has been working on to make it a lot easier to get going with Haskell and just with web development in general. And that's actually why we posted it, as we said, I should be very clear on that. She posted it. I can't post it. And she got banned for that, right? By simply saying, here is a Haskell web framework designed to make it really easy to learn how to build applications. Right, and you can go see the README. Check out the Jenga framework on GitHub. We've really put a lot of effort into that README. So again, anyways, let's just get going. Here is the note I have. I'm gonna put this as a link in the description after. But I'm just going to read it. This is exactly what I said to r/learnprogramming. And I want to go through it because it actually details like what the incidents were, or weren't in one case. Bans from r/learnprogramming. And again, all of this is my opinion. Maybe I actually did deserve to get banned. I'm not going to deny that. That could be a possibility. But I have to kind of, the way that I wrote this letter is, I think that I shouldn't have been banned, and I really strongly feel that I should not have been banned. So, anyways, I have been unfairly banned from r/learnprogramming for actions that have been viewed as acceptable by other members, and it has become clear that this is targeting for my beliefs. I want to qualify that. I have, for the things that I will go into, there's a number of ways in which I was being told I was attacking, where there was a much larger attacks on myself. That the mod who I talked to actually said, well, we don't care. I mean, you didn't report it at the time, and that's true. I didn't report it at the time. People were really ripping into me for liking Haskell. One person was insulting my name, Lazy Lambda. So I didn't report that. I didn't really feel like reporting it. It didn't really come to mind even that I should report it. Anyways, so that's kind of what I mean is like, like, if that's wrong, then why is that not wrong? Anyways, this behavior from mods has started ever since I respectfully made it known that I use Haskell and love it. So my first 2 posts in the r/learn programming community were about Haskell. So I learned from a mentor that they thought the learn programming community was highly toxic. And then this is like the mentor's words. Not my words. And I thought to myself, like, well, that's a shame. Like, literally, like, the place where you learn is highly toxic. That kind of sucks. Like, that's, like, very anti-learning if that's the case. And so, you know, like, it had always just kind of been in the back of my mind for multiple years. That was probably back in 2020 they would have said that. I guess I just have a good memory, and I remember that very clearly. But it was only until this past year that I even decided to kind of try and take on that toxicity in the community. And I encourage you, you know, to go look up every single post, every comment that I ever had. You know, my username is _lazylambda, and I really think that I honestly acted with I argued with people about, like, you know, certain technical things, that is for sure. But, you know, if there was someone who, let's say, like, just started programming, or they were feeling really discouraged, I kind of made a point to really try and, like, you know, just give them, like, some positivity. Even if I couldn't really make much of a point, you know, maybe they were working on a language I'd never worked with before. I really just made a point to be like, you got this. Like, you got this. And that's kind of my attack, right? My attack on the toxicity that I expected, right? Directly attacking the toxicity, you know, by kind of trying to add some niceness to it. Yeah. And it may sound stupid or whatever, but that's how I went. Anyways, so I am passionate about Haskell. However, I have not once been disrespectful in that community. I really strongly do feel that. I disagree with others, but not at all in a way that violates Reddit's code of conduct. I literally went and read it after a couple days of being very sad about things, or even the rules set out by the r/learn programming mod team, which I read after the first time that I was told I violated the rules. And I've repeatedly asked for an explanation on how they viewed all 3 violations as rule breaks, as I have studied the rules from front to back. This is true. I have studied the rules from front to back. Quiz me on that. Additionally, I was never told that the first rule break ever violated the rules. So this is like this is true too. They literally messaged me saying, for the first time, saying, "This is your second strike. One more and you're done." That was December, the first-ish week of December. And I went, wait, what? When was the first rule break? And they said, oh, well, it's actually this other time or whatever. And I wasn't made aware of that. You know, I did not know that was the case. And it just also seemed funny, even that particular rule break. So there are 3 rule breaks they accused me of. Number 1, an off-topic post. And so, like, I asked about the dev job market, which is an incredibly common post and clearly about software. Now, this is the post. Hello, friends. I'm someone who has always been interested in the intersection of software and HR. Yeah, I recognize that's a WTF. It still is, even for myself, as I don't have an interest in HR alone. Because of that, I've come across a wide range of opinions on how hiring has changed, and I've been conducting a great deal of personal research into how hiring has changed since the booms of 2021. That would be when I got my first, like, kind of very serious job, right? Where I really felt like, wow, I am an engineer. Like, I was really proud of that job. And so anyways, so my question for that reason is, are you or someone you actually know, someone who has been hired recently at a traditional non-tech company in the past year or two, are you someone who has been hired at a non-traditional tech company in the past year or two. And so what this was based on, like, is that I have seen that, like, overall, like, I believe it was that like, you know, there's all the layoffs, right, that happened with, like, the massive tech companies, but there were still other people that were reporting that overall job growth was a thing. And so I went, that's, like, very, very strange. And so this led me to this question, or this query, where I asked, like, you know, are you getting hired at, like, somewhere that is non-traditional? For example, myself, like, I have been since hired at a financial company. Right, they're not a tech company, and they're very, you know, they have a lot to learn. I think in terms of, like, technology wise, right? They're not trying to rival Meta with their technology. They're not very AI forward, but, you know, they have jobs, right? They are growing for jobs. And I kind of thought, like, this is an interesting thing. I really want to know this because it would make a lot of sense. You need tech wherever you go. And so, you know, I just asked, like, have you always been in an industry? Why did you move to those companies? How did you do it? If you care to elaborate beyond that. And, like, you know, just, I gave another example of that. So I'll have the link in there. But yeah, that's the actual first post. I was never informed this was my first strike or received any explanation. This is true even after I talked to the mod. They actually insulted me instead of saying an explanation as to why that was off topic. And I'm still actually not sure to this day why that would be off topic, given that there's a lot of questions about, like, how to get jobs in you know, learn programming. And it feels just very on topic. Like, I'd love to hear an explanation as to why that is. Maybe I'm not even just an asshole. Maybe I'm stupid for that reason. But I still don't get that. I'm still deeply confused as to how this possibly violates the rules of the community, et cetera, et cetera. This was an interesting one. My use of the word brother was the first time that I was warned, and that was when I was told that I had 2 strikes. I still do not get this one. I also should qualify this statement. This is something I'm currently beginning the process of getting checked for, and I guess I don't technically know this to be very clear, but I also, there's a lot of signs that my friends would necessarily agree with. So I could be just completely off on that. I want to make that clear. But I've struggled with a lot of social things there. Anyways, so but, like, I think there's definitely true that I have some sort of deficiency that could be making this hard for me to understand here. And let's go to this. So this is comment number 2. And what did I do? Was this me? Yeah, I asked the question, is any language actually beginner friendly? I'm not going to dive into this too much, but I really have, like, this is something that I've been thinking about in the back of my head for, like, years, like truly years. You know, so for context, like, I found it much easier to learn Haskell than to learn Python. It's hard to say, though, and there's never really an objective truth when it comes to learning, because I learned Python before I learned Haskell. So, you know, could it be that I learned Haskell and that's why, learned Python first and that's why it's easier to learn Haskell? Perhaps. But I give a lot of reasons as to why I think it is easier to learn Haskell. And so I get this response back. Languages are neither beginner-friendly nor unfriendly. They are simply keywords and syntax. That's it. This is true for the majority of languages. I actually very much believed that... this doesn't matter. This is relevant to all this, but you know, that like JavaScript, Python. What's the difference? Like there's curly braces, and you can go with Python, right? Python being Python with braces. So it's kind of it is syntax. Like it is I agree on the majority of things, but like if we even just like, here's the truth. I think actually this maybe does matter. Is, you know, like if you look at like the R slash programming languages, right? R slash programming languages, right? You really find a different truth here. There, you know, a lot of these aren't necessarily interested in syntax. Are we actually showing this? Let me make sure. Oh, dear Lord. I am not showing the Chrome browser. Perhaps I'll whatever. Anyways, so like, you know, if you go to, just for context, like here's the post, and maybe it's even a good thing because you know, well, I guess it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at this point. But this is the actual post. Again, I will post that in the bio or in the description of the video. But again, if you look at R slash programming languages, a lot of these aren't, like this one actually is focused on syntax, but even like, you know, the other part is like new generics, right? Generics being more focused on like data structures. You know, the verse programming language is phenomenal, right? Or very fascinating. I can say I know of it very well, but like, you know, even the creator of Haskell, not the creator of Haskell, one of the creators of Haskell, I should say, is very focused on it. And it's a, you know, it's a very interesting language that's kind of meant for game development. And again, the point I'm making is that, like, respectfully to this fellow Redditor, there's not really a lot of truth to what he's saying. You know, or sorry, what pardon me, like what they could be saying, right? And so like it's just not correct. Your tirade about, and so also too, like I gotta say this, I kind of felt you, like way too many people, complain programming and programming languages. Your tirade about bugs has nothing to do with programming languages and all with programming. Again, I just like, there's a lot of errors in the thinking here that comes from honestly not understanding the full scope of programming languages. It's like, you know, if you never leave your hometown, you come to have a understanding of all that is true. Except it's, you know, you might be kind of shell-shocked when you go visit a foreign country and you realize that, hey, not everyone operates the same way. But yeah, and you can have almost, like, this is, I'm not going to dive into it too much. It's just not correct. And so, you know, I kept getting like negative downvotes, and it was kind of like, okay, what? And I basically said this. I said, this kind of seems all over reduced, with all due respect. And I said, I love the username, by the way. And the reason for that is, I'm gonna try and figure out a way to block out the username or something. I don't know. I'm not even sure if that would make sense or whatever. But anyways, I love the username because I thought it might be actually a reference to one of my favorite bands. And so I'm like, okay, that's pretty, like, I was very curious about that, genuinely. And so, you know, I just kind of, again, I said my point. I said, I'm really struggling to understand what you're saying. And actually, now that I read this, oh my gosh, this kind of made a connection in my head, because the mod, whoever the mod was, I don't know who the mod was, but they said when I asked them about the first one, the first incident where, you know, I was like asking about why was that like off topic, they barked back in a very insulting, you know, not super insulting way. You know, there's definitely more they could have said to me, but they were pretty kind of coming across rude, of insulting my reading comprehension. And they were like, like they were saying that my reading comprehension is why I'm not understanding what they were saying in the mod chat. And they were saying that it also shows very clearly in my comments, what that is. So yeah. So I figured I might as well even just go through some of the actual chat with the mods. Yeah, like where was this? You really need to work on your reading comprehension. This also shows in your comments you are interpreting instead of literal reading. There's a couple of reasons I would probably think it's the opposite. But anyways, nobody said anything about the word brother being toxic. This is kind of next point, and all of that jazz. But that's very interesting. The connection that I just made there. I think they were specifically talking about this sentence, and I will say again, I read it 6 times over because I just thought maybe they were trying to say something else. Especially as someone who is a top commenter in the community, I was just kind of shocked by, the fact that frankly the facts are not there. Anyways, so yeah, and so like this kind of just all goes along. I think even like it's kind of stuff like this is a good point of like what I was trying to like why I had to read so many times over. I'm like, what does this mean? Like what? Which again are not programming language, but programming errors. Yes, but your programming language can help you avoid programming errors. That's how I would interpret that. But again, maybe I should literally read it. And the problem is in front of the keyboard. Again, but it can be in the computer, right? It can be in the compiler. And again, I actually agree with this point. I love this point, to be very clear, is that you should look at yourself as the number one source of your problems, and that's a very good way to grow quicker. And I kind of, again, like just, I found this guy just kind of, or, I don't know, like, I found them to be very, kind of rude at this point. And I just, again, I was kind of going like, I don't really understand what you are saying. And honestly, I think at a certain point, I just got like really frustrated with the way that they were talking to me. And like, I was just kind of like, why are you like you're putting a Wikipedia link in about like a programming language? Like, it's kind of like, it just comes across as like a little bit ridiculous. Like, it's kind of like, you don't think I know what a programming language is, or like, are you what are you trying to say here? You also have, there are no arguable points with like period. And so like, I just, again, I'm like, and again, this is where I went wrong. I wouldn't do this again. Let me be so clear on that. I would not choose this wording ever again. I think even like, I really, really try as hard as I possibly can to use gender neutral like pronouns. Just, especially like on the internet, you have no idea who you're talking to. It even just makes logical sense to use like non-assumptive pronouns, right? I don't even know who the heck is on the other side. Like I really don't know anything about this person. So, I wouldn't say that again, but what I will do if I feel that there is like a tension that is happening is I'll try and use language like this to kind of say, okay, like we're on the same side here, right? Like we're not like, let's slow it down here. I'm not here to try and insult you. I'm going to assume the best of your intent, that you're not here to insult me. Yeah. And, yeah, I know. I'll say this. This was definitely a snarky remark that I have, but that also wasn't even like cited as like the problem or whatever. I still have no idea what your point is. Not even sure you have one. I'm talking about learning, and you're talking about dictionaries. Like I really genuinely was confused by what they were saying, and I think it all boils down to like this is not even correct, and I'm just going. Can you elaborate? Can you elaborate? So, yeah, I again, should I have done that? I think this is my, I'll say this. Did I make a mistake? Yes. But even too, like, you know, I kind of put this, and I kind of tried to like, again, just talk. And I don't know, it's clear kind of like who is downvoting me one. Which I think is just a kind of a silly thing to do. I think it's actually technically against Reddit rules to just like downvote for the sake of downvoting or whatever. Like, if there's a point to be made, then like I'm sure, like I would think again, if you're like, and I say this genuinely, like if you're a top 1% commenter, I would think that you would be able to elaborate, as you have many times over, on like why I'm an idiot. You know, like, tell me why I'm wrong instead of just, like, saying you are wrong or whatever. And again, like, even here, I'll be honest with you, I so badly wanted to be like, that is just not correct. That's not correct, but I wanted to try and approach it in a gentler fashion. And you know, even like I kind of, that's even in the language that I use, like right, like I'm kind of like, you know, right, so like let's move on to the next point, maybe we can agree with that. Anyways, I don't even see why this would get downvoted in all honesty, but I think this is the best kind of feedback or advice that I could give. But whatever. At least it's for what works for me. So yeah, that was the second one. I think I've really kind of just talked about them. Talked about this one. Sorry. Yeah, I just again I definitely found them to be like a little confrontational. Again, not like I kind of expect that on Reddit. Like I don't expect everyone to be like super polite with me or like to agree with me or whatever, but you know, I think it like I'll be honest, I don't know if I was necessarily the one who was being like kind of rude in that instance, but I again, I think now I would maybe consider, I don't even know if I would, no, I still wouldn't. But yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. Okay, so this is the third one. This is the final nail on the coffin. The second time that I have been messaged by moderators, and also too, like, to be clear, like, you know, at this point, right, where I have 2 strikes, I am like, I don't agree that I have 2 strikes. I think it's kind of insane that I'm at 2 strikes. Do I maybe have 1? I'll take 1. You know, like I don't even know if I honestly understand the strike. I really felt that I acted with my best intentions, for whatever that is worth. But like, fine, give me 1. But I have 2, and they're clearly not backing down on it. They're not even responding to me or giving me an explanation as to what exactly I did wrong. You know, so I just was like, okay, like, I have 2 strikes. I accept. I have 2 strikes. I'm going to be very careful because it would really suck for me to get removed from this subreddit. I care a lot about the subreddit. I don't want to get removed. So number 3 was allegedly violating rule number 1 of the subreddit. What is rule number 1? Rule number 1 is no unprofessional or derogatory speech. Very fair. Follow Reddit. Behave professionally and civilly at all times. Communicate to others the same way you would at your workplace. Disagreements and technical critiques are okay. Okay. But personal attacks are not. That's very fair. Personal attacks are not fair. Not welcome. That is absolutely fair to remove all of that. Especially abusive, racist, or derogatory comments will absolutely not be tolerated. I 1,000,000% agree. So let's look at that. What was what did I say to violate the rule? So to violate the rule, I said this, right? My derogatory or hateful speech, where I targeted a person, was I said Python is the worst language, only useful if you intend to learn malpractices. And I know this is a very hot take. I'm not even denying that. But I actually truly believe this to like the core. And I think, again, this is why I've learned Haskell, is that I have another video. I haven't released it yet. But it actually is just me talking about that I think the only thing that I truly have learned as a senior developer, or what makes me a senior developer as opposed to where I was when I was a junior developer or even an intermediate developer, is I recognize that I am problem number one. I am, if there's a bug, it is me, right? I made the bug. I caused the bug. I made the mistake. And so, that's on me. I cannot blame anyone but myself. And so what you do and why I made a video of this is I think there's a pattern here. And I think that all senior developers in some sense think this way, is that they look at themselves and they say, I've made 1,000,000 mistakes. How do I limit those mistakes? What can I do to limit my mistakes, ultimately? So I went about that, and that's why I learned Haskell, is because Haskell literally says, you made a typo here. You made a typo here. Hey, you wrote some logic that doesn't actually make any sense. Like you're trying to call a show, right? You're trying to write a print log on a password. You don't want to do that, right? You don't want to do it, like you don't want to print a password. That's like a major no-no, right? But and you may not realize it because the password is, I don't know, maybe a part of some larger data structure. But Haskell's going to catch that. Again, it can be so much simpler, right? You do something just very stupid, like a typo. And is going to catch that, whereas Python is not going to catch that. Python is not going to catch that because it doesn't know that that's a typo. I'll also say this, and I can pull up the video. Maybe I started watching Primogen a lot. He's actually hilarious. I have to admit, he talks about Python as being the best worst language, and I think it is very insightful what he's saying, and I would say that I agree with that. That it is the best worst language. Right? You have Rust. I think it's the literal quote is, you have Rust, which is the best language, or it's the worst best language. It's one of those two. He talks about Rust as being something of a good language, and he talks about another. Java's the best mid language, I think, is what it was. Anyways, and that's. So I kind of thought, like, well, that's commonplace. Like, Primogen's very well known, obviously, and like I thought this was kind of like a known fact. So yeah, that's why I said this. And again, like, and only useful if you intend to learn malpractices, because there are other languages that teach you better practices. And like that is the point I try to get across to why people should learn something like Haskell. And again, I'm not denying that this is a hot take. But also too, here's the thing, like that I think is important to remember is like, this, Reddit colleague is obviously very clearly established. I'm not talking to, like, they're not my focus. The focus is the people who are coming in to learn programming and are learning to code. They are getting, I've had conversations with people from Learn Programming, and it surprised the heck out of me, because I'll say, you should learn Haskell, and they go, okay. And I'm like, wait, what do you mean? Like, you're not you're not going to argue with me on it. You're just going to take my advice like that. And like, yes, that because you are a learner, you don't know, you don't know if good advice is actually good advice. You kind of just have to work on the ethos of someone to discern if this is good advice or bad advice, right? And I'm very fortunate to have amazing mentors, and if I look back at them, I didn't know how to dissect if they were a good mentor or not. I just knew that they had some ethos to them, right? They built a great business, and they're very established. They've done a lot of projects. They can whip out a project very quickly, etc. That'd be the most deep my analysis would become, is how fast they could finish a project and how large is it. But again, like my point is to talk to this person, not this person, right? Not this person, this person, who has never done programming before, or not never done programming before, but they're still very much learning. And maybe this isn't even the best example, right? But you have many people that come in to learn programming, and honestly, just like it's brand new. They're looking at like all of these different plethora of options, and they don't know what is the difference between C++, between Java, between Python, between JavaScript, between Rust, between Haskell, between, assembly might be a far-fetched one, but there's not a knowledge to this. And even I would say myself, like, as a self-taught programmer, initially, right, initially as a self-taught programmer, I don't know if I honestly would have known the difference between assembly and Python. You could have told me assembly. You could have told me a lie that like assembly is like just like a Python-like language, and I'd be like, oh, okay, cool, because I don't know. I don't know right from wrong at that point. And so it really becomes a matter of like the people who are in this Learn Programming community, or in any programming community rather, are kind of automatically viewed as experts. And so, here's what I'll say is I just, again, this is not true. This is not true. I would, that's not true. For example, I'm not going to name names or whatever, but I know a developer who's a friend of mine who got a Python job with having never touched Python before. They literally did exactly what I said. They said, you also don't need to learn Python now to get a job in Python later. If a job hires Python, take what you know from a way better language, and I mean that, like a way better language, and Google the syntax and take the interview. And again, this Redditor has said it's just syntax, right? So I'm actually kind of even making, I don't know if I can't really remember if I actually tried to do that intentionally or whatnot. But this is exactly what they've said in the last time I interacted with them. Right, like about a month before that point. And I said, Google the syntax and take the interview. This is like it's a matter of dissecting what you are going to learn, like all as the total sum of the skills as a programmer versus what versus what the actual job entails, right? And so, like, I think this is a very, very mundane point that I'm making here. It's a very common point that, like, once you learn a language, this is said a million times over in the community. Once you learn a language, like, you learn the fundamentals, and it's easier to switch languages. And so, like, but I think that the piece that people miss is that there are languages that really do teach you how to think in a domain modeling fashion a whole lot better. I think even, like, I recommend Haskell. I think, like, Haskell's still not even the best language for that. There's EGDA. EGDA is a million times better than Haskell. EGDA sounds like science fiction, and I don't recommend it because, I mean, most of the reason is I don't know EGDA well enough to talk my way around it. But also, just Haskell is if you are going to do that, it is going to help you with Python, right? I code in Python daily. I code in Python daily for my work. Not by choice, and I find that I am actually quicker at debugging. Like, this is such a hard point to communicate, but I am quicker at debugging, all of these kind of different skills, because of Haskell. Because I'm thinking, well, what are the types here? What are the types, and what's the graph of types that exists in the script or this code base as a whole? And that gives me just such a deep lens and being able to say, I should probably look here, right? And it becomes a thing of going from a needle in a haystack, or a lot of code to follow, to intuitive guesses about, this is probably where it is. And then, from there, I kind of can say, okay, well, like, if this is kind of an indication, right, that this little graph here, I can kind of break it down, right? And I can kind of say, I know it's here, right? Here's where I want to get to. Here's where I suspect the issue is, but I need to follow it from this trajectory. And I end up solving bugs. I solve so many bugs within like 20 minutes to an hour, because it's just not actually that complicated. It's complicated, don't get me wrong, but even like from having learned a language like Haskell, it helps to really reduce and simplify things. That, like, again, I'm very grateful, and this is why I have the channel to begin with. I am very grateful to what Haskell has taught me. And you know what, even so much of that is, more of the learning has come from using Haskell, from acting with Haskell, as opposed to even just the mentors in Haskell. The mentors in Haskell are great. They really help you when you're stuck, but it's Haskell that teaches you. I think this is the same with any language to an extent. But yeah, this is what I said, right? I stand by this. Honestly, I really truly feel that this is what the people coming in to learn programming deserve to know. And I'm not going to have everyone agree with me on that. I definitely will not. People who like Python are going to disagree with that. But here's the thing, like, so this gets into another piece, which is people, people talking about, like, their favorite language, and it's easy to gain a sense of self with connection to the language, and I think it's a very natural human thing, and I think it's fair. You know what? I honestly, and for that reason, I do recognize that I made a mistake. I kind of wish that, I kind of wish that I had said this in a different way, but also too, like, I think the directness of it, I don't know if I could have gotten around it to, I don't know if I could have said the same point with having watered this down, because of all the other conflicting opinions. a lot of people say that Python is the best language, Python is the best beginner language. I really don't agree with that, and this is exactly why. But anyways, but again, if we go back to the actual rule, I think it's here? Yes. We are allowed to have disagreement and technical critiques. Right? That's kind of like the foundation of the community, is my understanding. But like, there's a potential that like they took me saying that about Python to be a personal statement, is what I have come to reason about. And again, but here's the thing is like, at the same time, if you go back to, and even a lot of the comments are now deleted, but like, I think one thing I see a lot is the word Rust gremlins, right? People like insulting people who like Rust. And it's like, okay, Rust gremlins, like, you're literally, like, that's kind of, it is derogatory. And it's just straight up rude. The post that I made was like, and the post was, there's a couple posts that were very similar to this, or one other post rather, that was like, why is there so much hate for functional programming? Because anytime I posted something, I would get like a very nasty response back. And I was kind of like, this is weird. Like, I'm like, I really genuinely think this. Why is there so much like frustration when or negativity when I say this? And I got a lot of hate on that thread, and the I don't know what's really left of the comments that are there, but there was a ton of hate. Like, even like, the other one was like, tell me why you think like Haskell is like a bad language, or something like that. Definitely different wording, but tell me why you think functional programming is bad, or whatever. And like, both those two posts, like, I really like, I got, and I'm not even surprised with the first one, because I did say like, tell me why you think it's a bad thing. I can understand why I kind of invite that thing, but like, the point being that like, Haskell is my favorite language. I definitely do feel like a love for Haskell, but I also, again, like, Agda's a lot cuter. You know what I'm saying? And I like, it's kind of expected. Like, maybe this is a result of just using Haskell a lot more. You almost come to expect that people are going to just dump on Haskell. It's just a very common thing. Yeah. So that seems to be it. And so, anyways, I think I basically explained all that. And yeah. Oh, and actually, here's one example of this. Let me pull this up really quick. So, someone responded to that thread saying, I don't hate it. I just don't think it's this magical, awesome, super cool, intuitive experience that some FPers make it out to be. It's okay. Again, I think there's a lot of nuance to be broken down in that. Perfect way to put it. And then I just said this, like, and I have you tried creating a project in it? Because again, like, what do you mean, right? Like, what do you mean? Have you used it? I'm sure they do say that. It is pretty magical in my opinion. Again, I'm just talking about, like, I love it. I really love it. There's many cases where it's as if someone said, remember these 50 things to do them is, how to do them is annoying. So here's a generic type class, which means you just need to remember this one syntax. Whereas OOP, right? And I'm kind of talking more about like libraries in Haskell and how awesome they can be. I think like the libraries in Haskell, like if you get to use them, they are so clearly awesome. Every single time I come back to this, it's got more downvotes. But whereas OOP, it's like okay, my belief for the best way to solve this is these plethora of implementations, which you should study my documentation for. It's definitely a lot easier to think about in terms of control flow for in FP. And again, at this point, like if you look at multiple languages, which, you know, like Flask versus Django, there's a lot of differences. And it's not like, oh, like it's kind of the same, and you just like, you just switch out A and B. No, it's very different. Anyways, it's definitely easier to think about control flow in FP. Yeah. And this is true. Like, there's a lot of times where like the finished solution looks like ridiculously over simple, but it's not. It's just as simple as it can be. And so, what did I do here? So someone just, this is basically it. It's like, here's your answer then, OP. Because of people like you, it got 14 upvotes. I got negative 17 downvotes for that. I think that's a bit interesting. Yeah, but like basically, I don't know, this person even kind of stepped in to be like, I just, good to see you're passionate. Didn't think it was defensive. I didn't really think it was a defensive response, but I did apologize for it. And also, this post made me realize a lot of what people are meaning by functional programming. And we mean very different things, right? And this is why like Reddit is great, because you can go and find where you disagree on the meaning of words. That's really all there is to say about it. So, but I don't know, that's the reason. And again, I think why I decided to do this video today of all days is just, I've been thinking about it for quite some time. I was, and my co-founder getting banned for life on the first post that they've ever made, I just think is like, it was that's definitely not right. Like, I don't know, that doesn't seem right. So yeah, anyways, the point of all this is, this is kind of ticked me off enough that I said, you know what? If you want to do something right, do it yourself. And this might seem like a funny choice of wording here, but I really mean this. This is not meant to be a snarky response or whatever. There's just not, like, you have to be very careful with the names that you pick. And so I really mean that this is going to be a Reddit about learn programming well. And actually, this was kind of the second Reddit that I came up with, because I also have learn func programming. And there's really nothing about learn func programming. Right? There's no learn functional programming. Learn functional programming, by the way, would have been too long a name. And so, I that's why I created this. And so the reason I created learn programming well and learn func programming is that I kind of expect this, just by human nature, this could become very easily an echo chamber about why functional programming is better than object-oriented programming. I didn't survive long enough in learn programming to understand truly why some people think that object-oriented programming is better. And I'm actually very curious about that, because there are researchers in Haskell who are trying to implement object-oriented programming in Haskell in a very particular safe way. And so I think that's really cool. But I think there is a core underlying principle that is missing from learn programming, which is just like about learning it well. Like actually learning it well. And where does that come from, right? Like this is my most important hot take, is I'm going to scroll down here and there's going to be someone who's like, I am like kind of losing hope, right? I feel lost. Literally, here we go. 6 hours ago, learn Python basics, but I feel lost. And it's got 0 upvotes. I don't get why this is. I'll be so honest, this really frustrates me because it's like, and I can't even, I can't even comment on this or whatever. And I think, again, there's like there's another element here, which is that like there's the human element, that it is really hard to learn programming. Like it is truly a painful thing to learn programming. And I think the thing that the learn programming community falls down on is that the core underlying derivative of if someone has learned programming can be understood in terms of types. Types are like the physics of programming. And I really, here's what I'm saying, is like if you either are aware of physics or you're not aware of physics, right? If you don't believe physics exists, it doesn't mean that physics is not valuable and that physics cannot tell us a lot about the nature of the world. Right? You can not subscribe to it. You can just say, I think physics is stupid. Okay, great. But then, don't interrupt the people who are going to use physics to do something amazing. Don't interrupt the people who are learning physics. And I think that's the point of learn programming well, is to kind of be like the understanding the physics of programming. There's just a lot that can be done better there. So I just don't. This doesn't make any sense to me, right? It's like it's just why are you like downvoting someone who's saying they feel lost? I'm trying to think back. Like I had no idea what I was doing. I spent 2 years getting frustrated at Python, right? And I was so frustrated. I eventually pushed through it, and I forget what, at the top of my head, I cannot remember what honestly kind of got me through it, but it just took a lot of effort to get through it. Whereas then you go to Haskell, and it's kind of like, don't even think about doing a project yet, okay? Just like, and it kind of sounds counterintuitive, right? You do a project in learn programming, or learn programming is going to recommend to do a project first. And I agree with that to a large extent. You should focus on learning programming, on learning projects, learning through projects. But you also, again, there has to be some prerequisite to that. You don't just jump into it. Like you have to learn the syntax, and you have to learn how to use the syntax. And, in my opinion, you have to also learn and get comfortable with the types to some extent. You have to know what the difference is between a string, an int, etc., between an object, etc. But with Haskell, again, it's kind of, it feels very verbose and terse at first, but you end up with a type signature, and it kind of looks like this. I'm just doing it in the, no, that's a bad idea. Let me just pause this. Sorry, and so in Haskell, you end up looking at a example function, right, that you're supposed to implement, and it's like, okay, you need to go and take an int to an int, and turn it into an int, right? We can also write this in a more familiar way, just to be clear. Right? We could say our inputs are int to int, and it's going to return us an int. And then we can say that how we do that is that we say x, y, and we're going to do x plus y. Right? We just wrote, oh yeah, that's true. To accompany for that, we need to go like that. And then we have a voila example. Oh yeah, and I'm not adjusting for the actual way this is written. So, we can easily write our first function in Haskell, and we end up starting with the overall overarching physics of what we are doing here. Right, we are writing the types, and then we're thinking about, with those types, how do we write this? And there's still more to it, right? I'm oversimplifying the way to learn Haskell, but it's very different, and I feel like it's easier to go from this to let me build a web server somehow, right? It is somehow easier to go from this to building a web server. Why? Because it's very sequential, and it seems like the average programming experience, right, is very much there we are, is very much like a matter of going from I am the master of the world to I am complete idiot to I am master of the world to I am complete idiot, and it's just this whole chaos cycle where you kind of hope to get better and better. So I think that Haskell, what that's going to look like when people start really learning Haskell to begin with, is it's going to be, right, you're going to feel stupid because you're going to look at a function type signature and you're still not going to understand it, but you're going to get there. And so, anyways, that I kind of went on a sidetrack there, but that's just why I actually do care about those communities. It is a very important thing to me. I am also genuinely curious of am I truly wrong for that? Not even am I the asshole type format, but am I wrong, right? Could I have done stuff better? I would love to hear your comments. Just please don't be too mean. So anyways, that is all for now. And it's Friday night, so I'm gonna go do something.